Warning, this is not a podcast for those who have got it together. We are men seeking answers to the questions that have plagued our mind. Can we be undefeated?
Okay, thank you guys for listening to the podcast, Positively Undefeated. I'm Burl Stricker. I'm actually here with my wife, Stacey.
Hi. It's been a minute.
Yes, thanks for being on the podcast. I want to make a couple of announcements. First of all, if you guys don't know that this podcast is it's a voice for a not-for-profit that we started. It's called Even One Less. It's about suicide prevention awareness. It's about mental health, and we really talk about all kinds of different things on this podcast, but also we deal with a lot of different issues on Even One Less or with Even One Less. But if you'll go to our website and connect with us, evenoneless.com, we would very much appreciate it. There's lots of resources on there. It's still a work in progress, but still it's a great way to connect with us. Also, on September 16th, we are having a mixer event, really introducing the not-for-profit. We're going to have a fun auction. We're going to have a food truck. We're going to have music there. And we would love to have you guys. It's in Elk City, Oklahoma, which is in western Oklahoma. If you're in the area, we'd love to have you. 6 o'clock on September 16th. It's going to be downtown at Stacey's office, which is United Country Exploration Realty.
105 South Main, downtown.
South Main,
Elk
downtown. City. Great event. It'll be a lot of fun. All right, Stacey. So today what are we talking about?
I don't know. I'm excited to be here, though. I love doing this with you.
It's fun.
It is fun.
It is fun.
I love how we just do these on the fly.
Yes. Well, I needed to do one for sure. I think we want to talk about 75 hard. And actually, I was thinking about it today when I was taking a shower. I was like, I should have talked about this right after I completed the 75 hard, because it was a lot fresher and a lot more in my mind and a lot more motivated. But still, it's still good. Here's a little background: is 75 hard is it was developed or a brainstorm or idea of Andy Frisella. He is a entrepreneur. He does a podcast, which is, I think it's called Real AF, and that's a good podcast. He talks a lot about business and really mental toughness is a big key of his. By the way, he has on his website that if you want him to be on your podcast, you have to submit a form. And I did submit a form.
You did?
And I haven't heard back. So
I'm sure
if you're listening, I want you to be on this podcast.
I bet they get a ton of requests to sift through.
On the list. I'm on the list, I guess. But anyway, I think it's for a great cause that you be on our podcast. So
wow.
But anyway, before, I had heard about it years ago from people through CrossFit, I think, or people that were working, that I worked out with. And really, to be honest with you, I heard more, just as many rumors or kind of stuff that wasn't true about it as I heard the truth. And so, I think there's a lot of misinformation, whatever. There's
misconceptions.
Yeah, misconceptions about it. And so you hear a lot of negative. But he makes it clear that it is not a physical challenge, that it's a mental toughness challenge. And so, but back to the background, I had a friend that really was into it, and he wanted to do it, and I was going to do it with him. But there's one of the rules that I struggled with was not drinking. That's one of the rules. And so I would go a few weeks, and I think at one time I went at 30 days, and it's a 75-day challenge. I went 30 days and didn't drink, but then I drank. And so that messed it up. And that was really the big hang up for me. I didn't really realize it till later, But that was the hang up of why I couldn't complete it, because there's no compromise with it. You know, if you mess up one day, there's no cheat days. If you mess up one day, you got to start over. And so I think that when I finally did it, it was like my fourth attempt to
Wow.
do it. And so the time before I'd started it and couldn't complete it. And so this time I had a kind of a plan. I had quit drinking a little over a year ago. And so I decided that when it came close to the 1 year anniversary of quitting drinking, that I would be deep in the 75 hard. So that was my plan this time, because I
didn't realize that you were planning it around that.
Well, I wanted to be far enough into the 75 hard that on, the 1 year anniversary of sobriety that I could say, it's definitely going to complete. And I think it was 66 days or 65 days. I was on 65 or 66 days whenever I hit a year of sobriety. So
really?
It was, for sure you're going to complete 10 more days. And I knew that at that point I was going to complete it. I think it's easy when you're at the beginning to be like, I'm going to complete. Everybody thinks that. But then when you get 30 days in, it becomes tougher.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to have another situation where I said I was going to complete it and then didn't complete it. And I did that before where, I'd like make social media posts. I'm beginning this 75 hard.
Right. Because you're trying to hold yourself accountable.
Yeah. And then I end up eating crow because I didn't do it.
I'm super proud of you for many reasons. But I know with that 75 hard, you did that solo. Like, I did not do it with you. I ate what I wanted to eat. I had a drink if I wanted to drink. We went on vacation and you made it work. I was thinking
about it, like we had vacation during that time.
We had a family crisis on day one.
We had family crisis on day one. We had also my birthday was during that.
Yeah.
Kenzie got married. My daughter got married. I mean, there's just lots of events.
There's a lot. Addison's birthday.
Make it where, you didn't complete. But if you guys don't know, the 75 hard, here's the rules. I got to try to remember. I should have them memorized. But you drink a gallon of water every single day. You read 10 pages of an entrepreneurial nonfiction book. You, you post a progress picture every single day. You take.
You don't have to post it. You take a picture.
Yeah, you take it.
Yeah, you didn't have to post it.
No, you take a progress picture every day. You pick a diet and stick to it. You work out 2 45-minute workouts a day. One has to be outside. I've heard different takes on it. If I had Andy on the podcast, I'd ask him this question. But I've heard that you need to wait 3 hours in between each workout. But either way, the point is that you do it at 2 different times. From one's 45-minute, like I said, outside. I think that's it. No alcohol. That we already said that. I can't think of anything else. Well, probably the most interesting part, I think, where the misconceptions come from is people think, I had a friend that automatically, when I was telling him I was doing it this time, he said, man, he was afraid of calorie deficiency, that you're going to work out so much and not be able to eat enough. But I think that points to the misconceptions of the program, because you can literally do whatever you want for your workouts. You can walk, which I did a lot. I started out walking and then later went to rucking, which carrying weight on, in a backpack. But there's times when I did like some yoga stretches and things like that. So I think that's a misconception, that you have to do these hard, grueling workouts.
And you picked the diet. It's not like you said, I'm going to scale back to X amount of calories or whatever.
Right. And I think that's an important piece, because people have in their mind. And I think it also points to a bigger problem when it comes to just the word diet, and how we approach it. I think that we approach it completely, we make it very complicated. But you can pick your own eating plan. And I think that you don't have to make it too complicated. And I think in my case, like I made it fairly simple. So what I said was no bread, no sugar, no like pasta, things like that. I did a little potatoes, but definitely nothing fried or breaded or things like that. And I think, and really, I didn't limit how much I could eat. I said that, I could eat as much as I want, but none of those items. And so
you didn't do chips, like
right.
You cut out unhealthy carbs.
Yeah, definitely cut out. Like one way to think about it, like it might be kind of like a paleo diet, and a paleo diet's definitely like a CrossFit driven, program too. And part of the paleo is like you look at like glycemic levels, and the glycemic levels are, things that raise your blood sugar. And there's certain foods that really raise your blood sugar. And one of those would be something like chips, or bread raises your blood sugar. And those actually cause you to store fat. So again, you don't have to make it super complicated. And I think that's a misconception. I really want to thank my daughter, Taylor, because she is what really prompted me doing this time and completing it, because she sent me the podcast from Andy Frisella, and talking about the 75 hard. And so when she sent me that podcast, I actually got to hear it from the founder's mouth. And a lot of things I'm saying is exactly what he said. And it made me think about it differently. And then also it made me, motivated to do it. So anyway, it was great to complete it.
I'm super proud of you.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
Yeah. And I loved that Addison, she's 15. At the time she was 14, but she jumped in and did some of the stuff with you.
Yeah. That was, and I think part of it is important. If you really want to do the 75 hard, I think there's some things that you need to do. One is prepare, but I think also having a good support system. And I think that was something that I really had, that I think it's easy to forget or discount. Like a support system, like you would never complain, oh, I'm going to go work, when I said I'm going to go work out again, or if I couldn't eat what y'all were eating exactly. The main thing is working out, because it's like, oh, got to stop, got to go work out. And you never complained or griped, and I think that support system is really important, because if you're going to do something like the 75 hard, you've got to have support, because that's a long time.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long time period. And if you don't have like the people closest to you supporting you and, giving you the leeway and the time to do it, then it can become a lot more difficult than even just the normal task, So I appreciate that very much. And that's something that, helped tremendously. And I mean, you're only supportive about the 75 hard, but supporting about drinking and not drinking. What
I really loved for the whole thing is that you accomplished something that you've tried before, and that when you posted that on Facebook and shared with people that, you stopped drinking and you completed the 75 hard, one that you've been open and vulnerable about the stop, that you stopped drinking and you completed this, and the response you got from that was phenomenal.
Yeah, I was really surprised by the response I got. And it's one thing for like you to post something and your friends and family see it and they like it and they comment it, but really there was tons of people that I didn't know that had commented, and it reminds me that people are struggling with things themselves. It may not just be drinking, it may be other things, but they really can relate to people who have struggled, and because I think everybody struggles in their own way. And
yes,
it's very affirming, and it's also motivating to see that you're not the only one struggling.
Well, you need to know you're not alone.
Yeah.
100%. Because
really
we are.
Help me see that.
Yeah. And people message you privately. Because I knew, God can turn anything into good, and he's going to share your story, or let you share your story in a positive way when you're ready, or do something good with it. And man, is he doing it.
Yeah.
He is doing it. And you're letting him do it. That's the other part. You're willing to let him do it.
I think that you hit on a very important word, and it's like, it's so easy to discount this word as well, but it's like willingness. And I think that's really what it all comes down to. It's like, we don't know the answers in our lives. It's like a lot of times we are not sure what to do, or, what to stop, or what to start, or, what direction to go. But willingness is, I think, a key word to that, is that you're willing to listen to God. You're willing to, you want his will in your life. But it's like, I think that's like a daily willingness to like hear that voice and hear what he wants, and hear what's going on and listen to him.
Let him use you as he sees fits.
I think that it's just, the willingness is a big deal. I think when we think about willingness, we think big, like macro, and macro meaning that, should I take this job, or should I marry this person, or should I buy this house? Or yes, God's in those decisions for sure. But also I think that we miss the micro, which would be like the small decisions. It's like, it's the decision today, am I going to, let him be a part of my everyday decisions and everyday thoughts, and really make him.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. Well, even like the little things, like, should I go talk to that person? It's like, at the softball fields that day, gosh, that was amazing. This was this summer, where summer league softball, and, we live in Elk City, and we're playing another team from another city. And I see this young lady in front of me, and she has a tattoo on her arm, and it has the symbol for suicide awareness. Well, really, if you're not affected by suicide or know somebody, you probably have no idea what that symbol means. And I thought, I want to talk to her. I really like that tattoo. And I'm thinking she's been, she knows someone's been affected of it that way. And I thought, I'm going to wait till the game's over. And I did kind of have like a little, anxiousness, as the time went on, waiting for the game to be over, because I thought, if she has a daughter playing, I'm not going to interrupt the game. But I really just kind of felt more of that is like, okay, God prompting that conversation to have, because I've had that before, where that's God prompting me. And I'm so glad I did go talk to her, because it was a great conversation. And then it also has connected the two of you.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I'm amazed, because I get messages from, I got a message from TikTok from a guy that I met years ago. And he just talking about his struggles with drinking, and, how it's affected his life. And, it's a reminder, like, that I think our experiences and our hope and our strength are just such big deals, and it's easy to, I've kind of been on this lately, where it's easy to preach at somebody, or try to, get them to bend to your ideas and your thoughts, or follow my guidance or whatever. But I think that what people respond to is your experiences, your
100%,
strength, and your hope.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And those things, it's so simple, because I make a video, and I don't even remember, like, this was on TikTok. So, it's not like I made a ton of videos about not drinking or whatever, but I must, I know I did. And it might have even been an offhanded comment on a video. And yet this guy's responding, and it's impacting him. And it's like, that's experience, and that's, he's seeing the hope and in that. And I think that it's a great reminder for us that experience, strength, and hope is such a big deal.
Yes.
And it's a little bit different than I think we think. We feel, it's like, we all want to help people, and it's easy to say, to feel discouraged because you're not sure how to help people, or be there for people, or be, someone they can depend on or talk to. But I think it just happens naturally when you when you're dealing with your experience, strength, and hope. They are automatically like gravitate towards you.
That is so true.
You know what I mean?
That is spot on. They gravitate towards you.
I think so. And I think that when you're talking about like gravitate, I think you're talking about more of God's in it.
Yeah.
than our own.
Yes.
I'm going to go out and change the world. I'm going to go save
Yeah.
people, or whatever.
Well, and I think it gives people encouragement. Like, okay, you've come out on the other side of this. You're just like me.
Yeah.
People, it was just like, we're talking about podcasts this morning, like, your next guest. And I had said, oh my gosh, I've got to connect you with Eric Easter. And you're like, okay, we'll do it. I'm like, okay, let me call him right now. I haven't talked to Eric, I don't know, couple years, if not longer. Could be longer than that. Pick up the phone, call him. You wouldn't tell that there was any time missed, and he just starts sharing. And that's why I think he'll be a great guest. But wow, he has an amazing story. And he just talks about how he's going to let God use him in that story, or in that, what's happened to him.
Yeah.
He's a perfect example of, how God has changed his life. And it's a great story. I can't wait for him to be on. But he is open and vulnerable and shares, and people gravitate to him.
Those are pretty big words, that I think we all struggle with. As we're talking about this, it reminds me why we aren't sometimes vulnerable and open. And it's because we're so afraid that we might fail. And then, so if I talk about not drinking and how I stopped drinking, and then something happens and I, have relapsed, or I start drinking, then that's what our fear is. It's fear, but it's all a lot of these things that keep us from really being the person that we want to be, or need to be, or that God wants us to be, the person we need to be for our family and for ourselves and all those other things. And for other people, is based on fear. And that fear is, what if I mess up? What if I can't continue doing it? And the basis of that is already a problem, because it's like the focus is on me and my ability to keep not drinking, my ability to sustain it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're missing the point completely, because it's not me who has done that. It's really God working through my life. And if he cares about it as much or more than I do, then he's faithful to complete that journey. He's
right.
And it is a day by day, journey. It's like, the Bible makes it clear, and really anything else, it's like, you're talking about a day by day, dealing with that today, not thinking about the future, not thinking about the past.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's where we get in trouble, when we start thinking about the future and we start trying to, project things into the future. And what if this happens, or what if it doesn't happen, or whatever. But I think if you get rid of that fear and you're just vulnerable and open and honest about stuff, then I think that really makes a huge impact.
100%. 100%.
There's a couple of things I learned. I don't know if I told you this, but I think, didn't you go on a walk with me one time when we went over the railroad track?
Yeah.
So it's funny, because the railroad track is actually very interesting. So one of the things that I've done really when I started the 75 hard, and then I still am doing today, even though I'm not doing the 75 hard, or I'm done with that. And that is, I'm liking the walking in the morning. And again, I transitioned from walking to rucking, which, is carrying a backpack with weight, kind of like backpacking. But, that's been a great time, because I don't listen to music. It's really my time to pray and meditate. And so you're talking about 45 minutes of that and being out in nature. I love that part. We live out in the country. So many mornings I'm seeing deer, and I'm seeing, turkey and wildlife, and it's just beautiful. And really taking that time to just, sometimes it's mechanical, where you just mechanically I pray for, each person in my family, you and whatever. And then other times, it's more like, praying with thanksgiving. It's like, I'm thankful for these things. And, but anyway, it's a time, it's been a great time, because I combine those two. It's like I'm out doing something physical, but I'm also spending time, with God.
Right.
But there's a railroad track near our house, and sometimes, just to break it up a little bit, I'll walk down that railroad track, and it has a bridge, and the bridge has this, it has, the railroad ties and it has the gaps. And, it's probably 10, 12 feet high.
I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't like it either. And, I have like this fear of heights. And even though I've done all kinds of things to overcome that fear. Like I've skydived before, I've bungee jumped, I've cliff dived. I've done these things to really help myself get over those fear of heights, but I still have a pretty big fear of heights. And so going over this railroad track, especially when you have a backpack on that has like 50 pounds in it, it's a little bit it's funny because you get nervous, but you can't really fall through the cracks because I'm too big to fall through the cracks. But yet it's a pretty big gap.
Right.
You can see the bottom. So as you're stepping, but the reason I bring this up is because it's like the first time I did that, really I could just feel the fear and these things inside. And I, really trying to calm myself down as I walk over it. I think there's normal fear there that like this is a little bit, dangerous or sketchy or whatever. But I think for me, it's just even more so. And it really reminded me of like whenever I was drinking, like towards the end of drinking, I had really kind of got to the point where I was like almost having panic attacks. And in fact, at one point I thought I was having a heart attack, and I really correlate that to drinking, and that, it made me a lot more, I don't know, like paranoid's not the right word, but very like, I felt maybe a little shaky. I felt, I just didn't feel 100%. And it also felt like my heart was racing. And then you take something that already the fear's there of heights, and it was just amplified, really, I think, because of alcohol. And so it was a good reminder, that as have, sobriety, that I'm walking over this and just feeling that same fear, but it's not at the level that it was whenever I was drinking. And so it's something that can be overcome. And so I would do that frequently, is walk over that bridge. And in fact, I did it this morning, and it was a great reminder to me that there's those fears that, that really are baseless, but on the same point, you can overcome those things. And I think that was a good lesson to me, in something small as a railroad bridge, But it also reminded me of the way it used to be, where I was like, again, towards the end, having kind of panic attacks.
Right. How did you like work through it? Did you just keep drinking, trying to make it go away? Do you remember?
You just didn't really know how to work through them, really now after, being sober, then it's easy to look back. Drinking was the problem. You quit drinking and then you don't have these panic attacks. You don't have these things, and you don't really correlate them with drinking at the time.
Right.
You don't think that this is a drinking problem, and I think it's a big misconception for a lot of people that may be struggling with alcohol and that, or drugs, is the fact that let's say you have 20 or 10, let's say 10, you have 10 major problems, 10 things that are going on. Like in my case, I was dealing still with grieving over my cousin. I was still grieving over my mom dying. So grief was a big part of it. I was also dealing with, our new marriage. I was dealing with, new place to live, career change. There's lots of stuff that's going on. And you really, it's easy to believe that alcohol is just one of the 10. And you could see like why you would think that, like, you may think, well, I need to deal with the grieving part. And so maybe that's counseling, and I need to deal with this and that. What you don't realize is that first, the drinking falls under a crisis kind of thing.
Right.
You need to deal with the drinking first.
Mm-hmm.
And the drinking is not causing all your problems necessarily, but it is not helping at all.
Right.
So dealing with the drinking or a crisis issue, another example might be, of course, I mentioned drugs, but it could be also like severe depression or severe pain or, but you got to deal with those immediate issues first. It's almost like, I always give the example. It's like if you went to the emergency room and your leg was hurting, but you've got blood gushing out your head, they're going to deal with the blood gushing out your head first because that's the most immediate acute problem. And alcohol is like that. It's like that is your immediate problem. You've got to deal with that first. And, I think this is another misconception about drinking. I think you can go years and years and really, quote, never have a drinking problem, but then it become a problem.
Right.
Drinking can become a problem for anybody.
Right.
And nobody likes to be called an alcoholic. Nobody likes to admit they're alcoholic. And it's like there's such a stigma to that. But the thing about it is that you can drink, quote, normally for years, and then all of a sudden it becomes a problem in your life. And it may be because you've had a death in the family, or it may be because you've had these going on.
Yeah.
And so it's so easy for somebody who don't have drinking problems to think that will never be a problem.
Right.
But,
well, and I can see how it becomes a problem later in life because let's just face it, the older you get, the more issues and more problems come at you. And if you don't have the tools on how to cope with those problems, they just build up and build up. And then people start drinking to try to mask those problems.
Yeah.
So I can remember saying, like just frankly using your whole situation when it happened. And I looked at Addison and I said to her, and at the time she was 14, I was like, you have to talk to me about what's going on in your life because I don't want you at 50 years old exploding like this or whatever.
Yeah.
Because she's one that keeps everything inside, and we all handle things differently.
Yeah. Well, there's a story in the, big book, which is part of Alcoholics Anonymous. There's a story in the big book about a guy who, like, basically it sounded like he owned his own business. He was, pretty successful. And he realized real quick early on that drinking, was not going to help him any in business, that he was going, that it wasn't good for him. It wasn't good for business. It wasn't good for his family. So, he quit drinking. So like at 35 years old, he just says, I'm done drinking because it's not going to help me.
Right.
So for 25 years, he doesn't drink. And this is a true story. This is not a made up story. It's a true story. So like 25 years, he doesn't drink, and he pretty much goes on and has a very successful career, very successful life. And then he retires at like age 55. And the way it's, the big book was written in 1935 or whatever. It's written a long time ago. So it uses some language that we don't use today.
Right.
But it says that he put on his carpet slippers when he retired and basically had him a whiskey and drank.
Yeah.
And it says within 4 years, he's dead from drinking. So it didn't go away for 25 years. It just was dormant as he was sitting there. And it's because it was a problem at the beginning. It's always going to be a problem for some people.
Right.
It's always going to be a problem. It doesn't matter how much you go without it. And that's a good reminder to me because it's like, it's easy to think, oh, well, I've been a year sober, so I don't need to, I can go have a few drinks or whatever. But for me, it's just that needs to never be a part of my life. It never needs to be.
Yeah.
Because literally it's a very progressive, and you could go right straight back.
Yeah.
And you could, it's not, you could, you will. You'll go right straight back to where you were when you quit, and it will get progressively worse.
Yeah.
But it's easy, back to the point. It's like, I don't think everybody's an alcoholic that drinks. I don't at all. I think that it's not a problem until it is a problem, you know? And I think that only you can determine that, whether it's a problem or not. And, like the message I got through TikTok about, the guy that I met several years ago, it's like, in his own words, it's a problem for him, and that right there makes me want to be available and help him in any way that I can, because that he's kind of, I wouldn't say crying out for help, but he's trying to figure it out. And, and I get that. I've been there, and, that's an important thing. Really the completing of 75 hard, it was like a coming of age thing, kind of. It's like, okay, is really, I think, capped off, the year, and capped off, all the changes that have been made. And I think that it was, a great way to, partly that's the way I planned it. I wanted to come into a year and be, at that point, I was 65 days, very, a lot fitter than I was, eating better, feeling better physically, feeling better mentally. And really that was my point, because also I knew that, like, when you come up to anniversaries, like, 1 year sober and whatever, that those are very tough times too. And so it was kind of like, added bonus to the whole situation.
I think it's very inspirational. I think you're a very relatable person.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
But I think it's great that you've shared your story.
Yeah. Well,
I know it's not easy.
Yeah. I become a lot more open about it.
You have. I know in the beginning that was tough, because I was like, we're not going to live in shame. We're not going to hide behind this. And I know for us as a couple, I'm a very open book. I've always been that way. So I know we had to work through that too.
Yeah. Well, I think my thoughts and advice to people on that subject is that you have to, when you're ready, you'll open up. And I think that nobody can prompt you to be
I agree.
vulnerable and open. I think when you're ready and in the right circumstances, but part of it's like you have to feel safe.
100%.
If you don't feel safe, if you feel like people are going to shame you or they're going to, whatever, then, and I was in that place where, especially at the beginning, where there was a lot of shame involved, and it's like, I didn't, but it happens. I love this, and this is a great thing to think about. We talk about how great humility is. It's like humility. One definition of humility that I've seen or I've heard in the past was not thinking of yourself less than you are, and not thinking of yourself more than you are. Like, right. Balanced thoughts.
I agree. And
I think that's a pretty good definition. But there's another version of humility that we don't think about, and that's humiliation. To be humiliated also humbles you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what we think of a lot of times when we think about humility, is that we think we are humiliated by our own actions or somebody else's actions. And that humility, really, if you don't graduate to humble from humility, then you're never going to really seek help. You're never going to be willing to change.
Right.
But you have to graduate from that.
Yeah.
And a lot of people struggle graduating from humiliation to humble. And, it took me some time to graduate from that.
And I think as a spouse on the other side of it, I had to be sensitive to that.
Yeah.
And like you said, we were newly married. So we had to kind of work through that too. Which I'm, kind of like, and now that I'm thinking about it, it's been a good, like, learning experience for, another, like, our other family crisis. Like, I really share that when God has led me to share it.
Yeah.
That's where I was before too. I mean, I just shared it with really others that had been in the same situation.
Yeah. I think that it's like, I think people, like we said, it's like when they're ready, they'll be happy. They'll do it. They'll share their story.
Yeah.
They have to be ready. And really a lot of it comes down to when they feel safe.
Yes.
That's why something like AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, is amazing for a start because it's built on anonymity. It's built on the idea that,
and I love it,
that you can share without judgment. You can share without somebody going in and talking about it.
I think as a spouse too, in supporting, I was so glad that you invited me to go to a meeting.
Yeah.
And you did that in the very beginning. And I'm glad I went to a meeting.
Yeah.
And I've been to a couple of, another function and stuff, and have met several people. And that if you have not gone to a meeting with, your significant other, you need to go.
Yeah.
So,
well, I've told this story before, but, I used to do men's retreats, and we would take young men, period, and we go to a dude ranch, and we'd spend like 3 or 4 days together. And I was always amazed by the guys that were married, their wives, like making them feel guilty for being at this men's retreat and not being home. And I think it's so easy if you are not, like, you don't really know what AA is about, for example, that you can make him feel guilty for going to these meetings and trying to figure it out. And they could almost spend more time doing that than they did drinking.
Yeah.
But I think that it's just being aware that this is a very positive thing in their life.
100%. Yeah.
So, well, thank you for being on the podcast.
I appreciate it.
And you guys,
you're amazing.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And thank you guys for listening. Really following our podcast, reviewing it helps us. It helps us gather more listeners. So thank you guys for that. If you can, again, review and like it and follow it.
Sure.
Remember our website, evenoneless.com, and then also our event on September 16th at 6 p.m. in Elk City, Oklahoma at United Country Exploration Realty, which is on Main Street, 105, right?
Yeah, 105 South Main Street.
105 South Main Street. We'd love to have you.
Hey,
hope you guys
live music, food truck.
The musician's great.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Pop. It's pretty cool.
Live auction, good stuff.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you for listening to Positively Undefeated. If there was something in this show that resonated with you, please share the show with your community. If you want this show delivered each Monday morning to your podcast app of choice, please subscribe or follow. And if you'd like to get a hold of Burl, please do so by going to burlstricker.com/contact.